In today's episode, not the time or the place. More default gateways is not always better. How many licks does it take? Every port is the same. Why does it have to be so hard? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Not the time or the place. Alright folks, I've worked at an IT help desk for a MSP for over a year, and I've got so many stories I don't know where to start. Most of my encounters were while I worked in a specific department of our help desk, supporting school districts and their students while they did remote learning through the COVID pandemic. Usually, the students' parents would call in for them to get support, your usual Wi-Fi connection issues, laptop won't turn on, can't load this page, etc. We also worked directly with the school if the student needed to replace the laptop, for instance a shattered screen. One of my favorite calls was a parent explaining to me that her kid needed a replacement because the screen is broken and the laptop won't turn on. I asked how the laptop got damaged so I could log it with my hardware request, and she said that her kid was playing with it and tried to use it as a Captain America shield. I gave a stifled laugh-snort before I could mute my microphone. Thankfully, the parent also laughed, and I went ahead with the replacement. That constituted the majority of my calls. Many of my coworkers reported getting calls from a parent who was asking for a replacement power cord for the router, or my kid needs help with their computer, but I'm driving to the supermarket right now. Whenever I would hear these stories, I would laugh, half believing and half thinking it was a slight exaggeration. This was my first tech support job. It never occurred to me that someone would think to call tech support for a school IT contractor asking for advice about which cable to buy for their iPhone. I learned fast. One day, I receive a call from a nice lady, telling me that her daughter's school laptop was no longer powering on. I asked my basic questions, got information about the student, and proceeded with trying some fixes. I asked her if she could grab the laptop, and she replied that she could not. I asked her if the daughter was in class right now, she said no. I asked her if she could have the daughter bring her the laptop, she said she could not. Something pricked in my mind, and I asked her if she was with her daughter/the laptop right now. She said no. She was in the hospital. In labor. It took me a moment to process that. I'm pretty sure my face was frozen as I tried to make some sense of the information, because my coworker looked at me funny. I asked the mother to have someone who was with her daughter call us so we can investigate the laptop, and promptly wished her best of luck. From that day forward, I have never questioned the stories of other IT personnel. More default gateways is not always better. This happened a while ago, but it's still something I should be a bit vague about even if an NDA isn't involved. I work in a relatively niche industry within a niche. I also seem to be one of the few that has a reasonable grasp on both my industry and networking in general. We had provided a quote for a project to provide our services to a project a couple years ago to the company that was actually providing and installing the hardware side of the equation. For various reasons they decided to do it in-house instead, but never communicated that. No, I'm not a jilted lover. About 6 months after they finished, the actual end user brought us into a conference call. Apparently they've been having stability issues ever since. Suppress my "I told you so" urge and smirk. The other company swears they can fix it, a fix is on the way, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Nearly a year later, the end user has had enough and fly us out to do a survey, audit, and report. First thing I notice, the log has several million entries of warning or higher severity over the past 2 weeks. In a well-behaved system where the configuration is unchanged, there might be a handful of notice S, and maybe 1 or 2 warnings over the course of a month. Second thing I notice, the IP connection between my devices used to exchange data amongst themselves is going up and down faster than a champion yo-yo, like I didn't know a connection could get negotiated to the state of being considered up, and then fed up enough that it could be considered down that quickly. That's all odd, but I'm not putting my finger on it. Then I pull the network configuration. Okay. There are 3 NICs in play, not entirely uncommon with my devices needing to talk to things on otherwise isolated/landlocked single subnet networks. But wait. All 3 have a default gateway defined? Why would you do this? I suppose an additional bit of information comes into play here. Based on the architecture of my devices, the actual brain that generates and receives packets is behind an internal router. I use the term with velociraptor air quotes, that then sees the external Ethernet interfaces. As a result, the primary OS doesn't really have any routing intelligence, and as far as it knows, virtually all packets are destined to or originate from foreign networks, even if the foreign network is physically connected to the device. Anyway, with a little probing, I figure out that one of the 3 doesn't exist. One doesn't have an actual route off the subnet, and one actually has routes to remote subnets that I care about. TM. Remove the interlopers, watch things. All of my connections come up, stay up, and months later the client is happy. Meanwhile, I dunno know, the IP info they gave me had a default gateway listed, so I just put that in the device configuration. Continues to be a plague on my industry. So near as I can tell, with the extra default gateways, the internal router just choosing an interface at random to fling packets out of. Sometimes it flung them out the correct interface long enough to get a connection up. The rest of the time it just dropped them into the void. And I've since come to really respect some of Cisco's stuff. Referring to it as the gateway of last resort seems to much more clearly convey the purpose. Though I guess that still requires a basic understanding of IP routing. Sigh. How many licks does it take? I'm a volunteer for a small group of people doing awesome things for people suffering debilitating health issues. I'm always glad to help and often spend a few minutes responding to questions in my free time during my real job. Today, though, I'm almost ready to slam the phone down virtually and walk out with middle finger in the air. I set up a new user with a cloud provider account that will get their email, online storage, calendar, etc. set up. I enter in a name, personal email address, and go. The system emails the user a welcome message, button to click, and set up a password. I'm at 2 weeks and 5 attempts to get this person through the basic enrollment. I'm fairly certain this person probably shouldn't be close to a computer at this point. I spent a day carefully assessing this enrollment, ran through a couple of test enrollments, and I'm just sitting here shaking my head. Read the welcome message. I'm having anxiety contemplating setting up a screen share, so I can see what the heck is going on, because I get nothing useful when it doesn't work. Thanks for listening in, and take care of yourselves before others. I spent 15 minutes abusing my treadmill before I decided to respond to the most recent email. Take care all. Every port is the same. Another tale that has its beginning in the world of robots. On mobile, but with English keyboard. Let's see how it will work out. QWERTY WTH. We installed a new robot cell for our customer. No big deal, we do it a few times a year. Talk to the electrician about the network cable for remote connection, and tell him where to connect it. There is one single port in the cabinet with the label external connection. I show it to him, and he is happy. The cable will be installed in a few days. A few days later, my coworker is at the customer site and has massive problems. Network timeouts, errors, interesting IP settings. For the time of the installation, we use LTE routers with Wi-Fi and DHCP. And the DHCP is making funny things. Then I get an idea. I ask my coworker to open the cabinet. And he tells me there isn't shiny new network cable installed. I ask him where it is plugged in, fully knowing where this is going. Yep, you guessed it right. It was plugged into the switch. We have 2 DHCP servers fighting, which is bad enough, but also an overlapping IP range with the customer network. We pulled the cable and asked around if they had network problems. Yes. For over a week, and nobody had an idea why. Don't shoot the messenger. I want to go home. Oh wait, I am home. Why does it have to be so hard? This literally just happened. Yes, I'm on Reddit at work. I pick up the call and the lady complains that she can never log in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, she just wants the issue fixed. Cool, let me get your info so I can bring everything up and see what the issue might be. Everything looks good on my end, so I ask her what device she's using to watch on. Older lady, my phone. Me, okay, are you using the app or the browser? Oh well, neither, I'm using our service. Me. Yes, but are you using the app or the browser to watch on? Oh well, I'm not using either. I'm using service. Me, ma'am, service isn't something you watch on, you have to use our app or a browser. Oh well, I'm 71. This is so hard, why do you people make it so difficult? I think I used to use Safari before? I don't know, I just press on it and it takes me to service. So I have to explain to her that Safari is trash, and extra trash when you're trying to watch videos, and that she needs to download our app instead. I walk her through the steps. She said she wasn't going to do it with me on the phone, to download the app and tell her how to sign in. Me, it looks like it was just set up here recently, so that's probably why you've been having issues. Oh well, no, I did it months ago. Me. Okay, well, if you need any other assistance, just give us a call back. I mean, my computer doesn't lie about these things, but it's getting late, and I'm not in the mood to argue with people who use their age as an excuse.